You can all see the screen, I hope. Please stop me at any point of time if you have any doubt or have any questions to ask. Yeah. Goes without saying, standard and stuff. Okay, so we'll continue with the presenting various features of lists. Recall that, so I'll just go over some things that we did towards the end of the previous class. So we looked at this function value at position. I want to return the value at position n of a list. N, so the positions start from 0. Okay, so if the position itself is less than 0, you just say error. Okay, so you have to say error. Otherwise, you just keep going down the list. If you ever encounter an empty list before hitting 0 in the number, then that means that, so if you are asking for the value at any positive, any non-negative position in an empty list, then that's wrong, because the empty list doesn't have any positions. So you will return this error message, index too large. Otherwise, if you want to return value at position 0 of a non-empty list, then you return x. If you want to return value at position n, where n is non-zero of a non-empty list, you recursively call value at position n-1 of the tail. Okay. Yes. So if n is greater than or equal to length of L, we will eventually hit a recursive call where n is greater than or equal to 0 and the list is empty. The list is the empty list, so you will hit this case. Yes. So you will hit this case. Okay. So error, as we've seen already, prints the error message and aborts the program. It is not the most graceful way of exiting a program, but yeah. So we'll see other ways that are better. Okay. Later. Okay. And yeah, one nice feature about error is that the type of error is string arrow A. Yeah, so it matches it takes a string as argument, and the return value matches. There is no return value really, it just aborts, but you can fit it in any function whatsoever. Okay, anywhere where an expression of type A has to be returned, you can just print an error message and abort. Okay, and the type of error is such that it can match. So if you give error of any string, error of some error message, this is of type A for any A whatsoever. Okay, that is what you really want. Okay, so yes, so this is what we have written. So we wrote this function in the last class. This is nothing but the built-in operator bang bang, let's call it. I don't know what else to call it. So this single exclamation mark is called a bang, and so you bang bang is the thing that returns at, you can call it at list at whatever position value 0 or j in general. Okay, so positions in the list are numbered from 0 to length L-1, and L bang bang L at j is the value of at position j of the list. Okay, and one thing you notice is that accessing position j takes time proportional to j. So for instance, if I say value, so if I say 0, 1, 2, 3, bang bang 2, then you will have to recursively evaluate this. You will say, oh, 1, 2, 3, bang bang 1, which will then reduce to 2, 3 bang or 2, 3 at 0, which will reduce to, okay. So you will have to, so it takes time proportional to j. In other languages, you use arrays as the main type that collects together values, and there you can directly in constant time go to position j. Haskell also has arrays, but we do not need arrays till for most of our purposes. Okay, so we'll see that with lists you can get quite a lot of efficiency There are a few things that are inefficient, but arrays are not built into Haskell. Arrays are not part of the basic structure in Haskell. It is some, it's a data type that has been defined. It's been added on later. It's a little more complex to use arrays in Haskell. We'll perhaps see it towards the end, but you don't need to worry about it now. So for now, just think of just lists. Okay, nothing else. Okay, then there is convenient list notation. So m dot dot n is shorthand for m comma m plus 1 comma m plus 2 etc. all the way till n. So what if m is greater than n? Then you will return the empty list. So 1 dot dot 7 is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. 3 dot dot 3 is just the singleton list 3. 5 dot dot 4 is the empty list, and so on. You can skip values here and form arithmetic progressions. 1 comma 3 dot dot 8, 2 comma 5 dot dot 19. So it will. So how far will it go? It will keep. So 2 5. The difference is 3. So to 5 it will add. So adding 3 to 2 you get 5. You will add 3 to 5. You will get 8. You will add 3 to 8. You will get 11. You will add 3 to 11. You will get 14. You will add 3 to 14. You will get 17. Now if you add 3 to 17, you will get 20, and 20 is past the range here. Okay, past the final value that you have given here. So it will stop. It won't print 20. Okay, so that should be reasonably obvious. So you can have descending sequences also, like here. So you are saying 8 comma 7 dot dot 5 is 8765. 12 comma 8 dot dot minus 9. This works in the same way as ascending sequences. The common difference is negative instead of being positive. That's all. Okay, and you will see that you can have this list notation is not restricted only to numbers, but also any type of value that can be enumerated in some order. So you can, for instance, have a dot dot z. So this will be the list which is a, b, c dot dot dot. Okay, you can. So Haskell accepts ASCII, of course, but also ASCII is a subset of Unicode. So Haskell accepts Unicode. So you can give any Unicode character here. When you say character, you mean any Unicode character, but I mean it doesn't matter. We'll just be using, most of the cases we'll be just using characters that we can see on the keyboard. Okay, except for a few things like new line, etc., which I'll tell you when we talk about character. Yes?
Sir? So why did it return empty list when we had 5 dot dot 4? Why didn't it return?
Because 5 is greater than 4, no? So you are going to count from 5 up to 4.
Yeah.
So how do you go from 5 up to 4? While going up, if you go 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc., you will never reach 4, right?
Yeah.
So that is why it returns the empty list.
Yeah.
In fact, didn't we program this? We called this something. Dot dot we called it. And then one of the cases we had was, what happens if the second argument is smaller than the first argument?
Yeah.
Yes. So we'll do all this in GHCA in a bit. I'll just present the slides for now. Then we'll, at some point of time, we'll break and go to GHCA.
So what if it would have been like 5 4 dot dot 4?
No, once more. 5
4 dot dot 4.
5 4 dot dot 4. You tell me what it would be.
5 4.
That's all. Yes, good. Yeah. But more interestingly, what would it be if it's 5 4 dot dot 5?
Yeah. It would return empty.
Would it return an empty list or would it return just 5? This is something. Can somebody check and tell me, please? If anybody is running GHCA, can they type 5 comma 4 dot dot 5?
It returns 5.
It returns null. Okay, good. So yeah, because it says you cannot,
returns 5.
go down and then reach 5. If you go 5 4, then you only keep going down. You cannot reach 5 when you do this. Okay?
So it returns 5. 5.
No. What does it return? Does it return just 5 or does it return empty list?
So just 5.
Oh, it returns just the value 5. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So okay. So I mean, not that you would use such a thing that often. You would instead just say just the list 5 or 5 dot dot 5. But anyway, good to know. Okay. So this is some built-in notation for this. There are lots of built-in functions for this. I just now told you we've already seen this bang bang or add. Okay, that's a function which is of type. What would its type be? Can somebody tell? First argument is a list. Second argument is a number. So it will be list a arrow. I don't know whether integer or int arrow a. Okay. Can somebody type this and tell me? Can somebody try this on GHCA and tell me what it is? Type of within parenthesis bang bang.
So it's this itself.
Yes.
Sir, it's int.
Okay, yeah. List a arrow int arrow a. Great. Okay, good. Okay, good. So now there are other very useful functions which we've seen most of these. Head we have seen already. Head of x colon x is x. Okay, it returns the first value. X colon x is, remember, is building a list. Okay, somebody is asking, is there a command to see all the built-in functions? Okay, so there are a few things that you can do. One thing that you can do is go to the documentation and go to go to the documentation and go to data.list. Okay, this is the hackage or whatever they call it. Let me just see. Okay, so Haskell.org. Yeah, so this is the browse packages. So yeah, so it would be good to bookmark this page. So it package.haskell.org/packages/browse. Okay, you can go here, and then if you know what you're looking at, if you say list, oh, this is not it. Sorry, this is not it. Let me just go back. This is it. Okay. So yeah, so it's all the libraries that are included. So you can, I can post this on the Moodle page if you want. Okay, or someone can post it on the chat here. In any case, so here you can go to data.list and check what all functions are there on lists. Okay, and so in fact it's a very good thing for you to maybe not right now. Right now, if you go there, you'll get confused. But after a point of time, it is good for you to go to data.list and try to understand as much as you can. Okay, because there are lots of built-in functions. You can see that for many of these functions, there is a source available. Okay, you can go look at the source. Most of these are themselves just Haskell functions, and you will be able to check it. Okay, so this is one thing. The other thing, of course, is this very nice thing called Google API search. This is a good thing that you can google.haskell.org. There's a Google, there's a Google API search. You can go here and search for either the function name or just the type. Okay, so you can just say, I could, for instance, say, just say that, so google.haskell.org is where you need to go, and you can just search for the type directly. And let's say you want to search for list a arrow int arrow a. Okay, it says no result. So, I need to search anywhere. Right. You see. Yeah. You see that all these things are there. It will give you all kinds of functions. Sometimes it might be confusing because there are some of these things you might not understand at all. but that doesn't matter. You just search for some simple function of this kind. Okay, then you will get it. Okay, so you can always go to Google and search for the type, and that will give you all functions of that type, and then you can pick whichever is appropriate for you. Okay, but yeah, but so to give you a short answer, there is no way to give you all the library functions. Okay, if you are in VS Code or whatever, it might suggest you some of the more common ones. Maybe, yeah, your editor might do some such thing if there is some preference like that loaded. But in general, you can always go to Google and check this. Okay, so let me just get out of this. Back there. Okay, so these are the important ones that you need to know for now. Head will return the first element. Remember that X colon X is the way you build lists. Okay, you use the colon operator on a list and an element, and will get back a list with the element tacked onto this thing. Okay. Okay, X followed by the rest of the list. So head will return X, tail will return X's. Okay, and head and tail on empty lists will give you an error, will give you an exception, and the system will exit the program. Okay, length again is a built-in function. Length of empty list is 0. Length of X colon X is 1 plus length of X's. Sum is a built-in function. Sum of empty list is 0. Sum of X colon X's is X plus sum of X's. So now, there is a difference between length and sum. Of course, there are two different functions, but there is a difference in the nature of length and sum. Can somebody tell me what? There's one crucial difference.
Sum is sum of elements of the list.
That is fine. You're talking about what so I'm talking about in terms of.
Sir, one adds in the length, and in sum the X, the element changes. X plus sum of X.
Sum is defined only when integers are in the.
Exactly. Okay, not just for integers, but for any numeric values. It could be list of integers, list of reals, list of floats, whatever. Okay, but length is defined on any list whatsoever. Okay, because every list has a length, but only numeric lists have sum. Okay, that's a difference.
Can we have length of underscore colon X's?
Yeah, you can have. Yes. Good. You can have it. Yes. Underscore means you don't care what the value is. Okay. Good. Okay. So let me move on. So length is there, sum is there. Okay. So somebody asked, how do I get the last element of a list? Okay. There is a built-in function for that called last. Okay. Last will get you last element of the list, but it will take time proportional to the length of the list, because you start with your original list. You need to, if your list is non-empty, if your list has only one element, it will return that. If your list has more than one element, otherwise it will. Otherwise, if your list has more than one element, it will go to the last of the tail. Okay. Again, last of empty list is undefined. Similarly, init means so if you have a list. Last will return just this. Init will return this whole as a list. Okay. So again, you cannot define init as just some init of X's colon X. That's not a pattern at all. Your list patterns always have only one of two forms. Okay. Again, this itself, you might think, oh, how can I give a pattern like this? This is really X colon empty. Okay. You can give nested patterns. We're giving nested patterns here. X colon X's is what you want, but X colon X is where X's itself could be either empty or non-empty. Basically, that's what you're doing. Okay. So just the list X is, as you know, X colon empty. So you're giving that. You are not giving a definition for the empty pattern because it is not defined. Init of empty list is not defined. Okay. Okay. This is not a safe way to program. When you write your own programs, you should make sure that you catch all cases. But init and last and head and tail are such basic functions that if you add extra safety features, you might lose on efficiency, which is why the basic Haskell library functions just do it this way. And these are such basic functions that the understanding is that you will know to use them safely when you use them. Okay, great. So is the definition of init clear? So init of singleton list is just the, if you take a list with one element, init is everything but the last element. So it is the empty list. Otherwise, what do you say? You take the first element and take init of the type. Okay. And then you add the first element to the init of it. So to the front of the init.
Sir, what is the use of init, sir?
You might sometimes want a list which, so just like you, what is the use of head, then what is the use of tail? Then? You might sometimes want just to get, so it's just provided for symmetry. You want. There are applications when you want to take the last element, no? And everything but the last element. Like in the, like if I have a list and I want to put the last element to the front, what do? I'll take the last element and so I'll say last excess of init excess. Isn't that what I will do? So you can always.
Could you explain that that syntax?
Now you
sir?
should ask, oh, what is the use of putting the last element to the front? I mean, there might be uses. How do I? I mean, Haskell is just anticipating several. Since you have head and tail, for symmetry, you are providing init and last. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now this is something that we saw already, reversing numbers, but let us look at reversing a list. This is the built-in function. This is, reverse is a built-in function and it is defined as follows. So if you want to reverse a list L, so one way would be to reverse a list L, you go to the last element, pick it up and put it in front. Okay, so this is precisely where you will use. Who asked what is the use of init?
Sir, I asked.
You asked, right? So what you'll do is you will say reverse empty list is empty list. Reverse of any other excess is last of excess put in front of reverse of init of excess. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
First init so you want to first reverse the whole list, then take the last element and put it in front. That will reverse the whole list, right? But how much time will this take? We see that to do init and last, it takes time proportional to the length of the list. Okay. So you will have to first compute last and init. That will take time proportional to the length of the list. And then you will make a recursive call to reverse. That will take some time. You'll see that overall it will take this reverse will take order, I shouldn't say order, time proportional to square of length of list. Okay, and you don't want that. You can do more efficiently, and the more efficient version is what the library gives you. Let me just illustrate what happens by drawing this picture. So imagine that there is a stack of plates. So plates are stacked like this. Okay, forgive my drawing. Okay, so you can push stacks. You can push the plates from one end. You can pull out plates from this end. And if I ask you to reverse this, earlier you had this thing, but now suppose you have an empty stack here. Okay, you can first take the top plate and you can take this top plate and put it here. You can take the next plate and put it on top here. You can take the next plate and put it on top here. Okay, what is happening? So if originally your elements are A1, A2, A3, AN, now the elements are A1, A2, A3. Okay, so you'll see that A1 was at the very top, now A1 is at the very bottom. A2 was next to A1, now A2 was just below A1, the original list. A2 is above A1. Is this picture clear? Yeah, so I'll take this, or I mean, whoever thinks of writing a horizontal stuff, I'll write it vertically. We usually stack plates vertically. Sorry. So you take the top thing here and push it on the top here. Okay, but the top right now, there is nothing. So like we can even say that there is something till here. So you can take the top thing here and put it here. Okay, and then you will take the next thing here and put it on top of that. Take the next thing here and put it on top of that. Take the next thing here and put it on top. Is it clear? You're just picking the thing from the top and putting it on the top in the other stack. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So somebody should. It's either very obvious or I am not making sense to anyone. I mean, this, okay. So this is what this reverse into is saying. So it assumes that you already have a list A, and you are going to reverse a list excess into A. So what will be the thing? What will be the various cases? If you want to reverse the empty list onto A, it is nothing but A. If you want to reverse X colon excess onto A into A, not reverse, reverse into. Reverse on top of. Then what will you do? You will first put X on top of A. So it will be X colon A. And then you will reverse on top of A, reverse on top of X colon A excess. Okay. This is clear. So reverse on top is what I written as reverse. Do you want me to walk through an example? That should be best, right? So reverse on top of reverse into. A here stands for a list. Okay, so don't. Oh, nice. Somebody says colon browse in GHCA. Okay, good. Okay, so let's get back to this code. So, what example would you like to try? Somebody give me an example.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the list.
So you have 1, 2, 3 here, and then you want to reverse 4, 5, 6 into that. Okay, so this will first go to, because this is of the form X colon excess, it will be reversed into 4, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. This will be reversed into 5, 4, 1, 2, 3, 6. This will be reversed into 6, 5, 4, 1, 2, 3, empty list. That will be 6, 5, 4, 1, 2, 3. So basically, reverse into A excess is nothing but reverse excess plus A. Okay, because you started out with 1, 2, 3 is what you want to reverse into. What do you want to reverse into that? 4, 5, 6. So you get 6, 5, 4 followed by 1, 2. Okay, so reverse into A, rev into A excess is nothing but reverse of excess plus A. Now, if I give the argument A to be just empty list, then what will I get? I just get reverse of excess plus empty. That is nothing but reverse of excess. Okay, so that is why I have defined it here this way. Okay.
So, what is the complexity of plus plus?
The complexity of plus plus is, again, it takes time proportional to the length of the first list. Plus plus is also a built-in function. We have already seen it, right? Attach or whatever we called it, right? So the definition of plus plus would be, if you want, empty list plus y is nothing but y is x colon excess plus y is nothing but x colon excess plus x. Okay, takes time proportional to the length of the first list, but we are not using any plus here at all. You see, so you're just saying reversal is nothing but reverse into the empty list. Reversing into A in general, if you want to reverse the empty list into A, it is nothing but A. You just return the A. If you want to reverse x colon excess into A, then you first put X on top of A. and then you reverse excess into them. Okay, so I'll move on, but please do ask questions.
So why is time
if
proportional?
you asked or order, please ask me. Yes, Shakti, what is it?
Why is time proportional to square of length in the previous case?
What is time proportional to?
Why is time proportional to square of length of the?
No. Can you repeat, please? Sorry. Why is time proportional to?
Square of length. You already mentioned before that.
So
Square.
he's saying square.
No, it is not square in this case. If you do the naive thing, it will be square. Time proportional to square of length was the init last version of this. This is just time proportional to length of the list. So we'll see this in detail later. But I'm just telling you that reverse is a very, very useful built-in function. Okay, I'll move on. You can just explore it. Like somebody said, you can use :browse, etc. Or you can go to the data.list on the browser and check. Okay, so here are some more very often used and very common functions on list. Take NL returns the first n elements of the list. Drop NL will drop the first n elements of the list. It will return the rest of the list after dropping n elements. So here are the definitions. Take, if there is nothing to take from an empty list. So no matter what the number is, take whatever it is. Empty list is empty list. If you want to take n elements from X:n access, so we need to concentrate only on non-empty lists. If you want to take n elements from X:n access, if n is less than or equal to 0, then there is nothing to take. So you just say empty list. Otherwise, you take the first element and take n-1 elements from the rest. Yes. So is the definition clear? You can either show thumbs up or whatever. Then
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay, good. Similarly, drop. Drop means you want to drop the first n elements. So again, there is nothing to drop from the empty list. So no matter what the numerical argument is, drop whatever empty list is empty list. Drop n from a non-empty list X:n access is, if n is less than or equal to 0, then there is nothing to drop. So you just return X:n access. Okay. So for take, you said if n is less than or equal to 0, you are not taking anything, so you'll return empty list. Now there is nothing to drop, so you'll return the whole list back. Otherwise, what will you do? You have to ignore the first element and you dropped one element, which is the first element, and you will drop n-1 elements from the list. Okay, this is it. And take and drop are nice because they work for negative. They work for all kinds of combinations of arguments n and l. L could be empty and n could be positive, n could be negative. Okay, no matter what it is, it will always produce some reasonable result. Okay, so if you say take NL, if you say take, so here is a spot quiz. What will be the value of take 5, 1, 2, 3?
So 1, 2, 3 itself.
Somebody else? Why 1, 2, 3 itself? Let's work through the definition. This is a non-empty list and 5 is not less than 0. So you will say take 4, 1: take 4, 2. Yeah, 1 followed by take 4, 2, 3. That will be equal to 1 followed by 2 followed by take 3. Just 3. That will be 1 followed by 2 followed by 3 followed by take 2 of empty list. That is empty list. And you can extend this logic. So if you want to take more elements than there are in the list, you will be returned the whole list. And if you want to drop more elements than there are in the list, you will return the empty list because you have dropped all those elements. At some point, you will reach the empty list case of the drop function and you will return an. Okay. Yes. So you can check that these relationships, this relationship is always maintained, no matter what n is and no matter what l is. Okay. Take NL plus drop NL equals it. Okay. So this take and drop is so nice. It is very useful in many occasions. So you will typically, just like you used div and mod together, you might want to sometimes split a list. Take the first n elements of the list, take the rest of the list. Okay, so you will want to return a pair. We have not yet talked about pairs, but it's okay. So return the pair, take NL, comma, drop NL. Okay, that's a pair. And the definition is, so this function is called split add. Okay, you want to split the list at the location n. So take the first n elements, take the rest of the elements and give me the pair. Okay, you are splitting a list into two lists. But if you define it directly, there is a problem, because so how would you define it directly? Split at of whatever number is, if you give the empty list, it is empty list, because there is nothing to take or drop from an empty list. Split at n of x colon x's, if n is less than or equal to 0, then there is nothing to take, so you will return the empty list for the take portion. There is nothing to drop, so you will return the whole list for the drop portion. Otherwise, n is greater than 0, and you will say, okay, x colon first of, so you will do split at of n minus 1 x's first, and then you will do x colon first of that, and then you will do second of that. Okay, but the way Haskell works, what will happen is that split at n something will have two recursive calls. Each of these will have two recursive calls. Each of those will have two. And so if your n is 10, let us say, there will be something like 2 to the power 10 recursive calls. Okay, that's clearly wasteful, because this is split at something that needs to be done. It will make a recursive call. You again have to do split at of the same thing, but it will make another recursive call. Okay, Haskell doesn't know that, oh, I can reuse that value here. Okay, so what you do is you explicitly bring that reuse by using a local definition. Okay, you say that, okay, first, when you want to do split at of n, split at n of x colon x's, you need the value of split at n minus 1 of x's. So you first compute that. That is returned as a pair, y's and z's. Okay, you do it as a local definition, where y's comma z's equals split at n minus 1 x's. And then come to the main definition. If n is less than or equal to 0, you return empty list x colon x's. That is fine. Otherwise, you return x colon y's comma z's. Okay. So now, if you look at split at n, it will have just one recursive call. This will have just one recursive.
What if n is more than the length of this?
Even then, you will only have n. You will then have length of n recursive calls. Okay. Somebody in Ray is asking dynamic programming, right? Yes, it is dynamic programming, but please don't use those words now, because there are people who are new to programming here. We'll see it all soon. Okay.
What are FST and SND?
Okay, first and second. So if you have a pair, so you can always form a pair like this. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2. You can also mix and match. So you can have a pair where the first part is a character and the second part is a bool. Okay, these are all pairs. Okay, and if you are given a pair, FST of 3, 2 will give you 3. SND of 3, 2 will give you 2. Okay, first and second of a pair.
Oh.
Okay.
Sir, could you go back to the previous slide for a moment?
Yes.
Okay, no, so but I understood what this code says, but why is it different? Like you said in the previous case that there's only like a linear, as in it doesn't split into two, right?
You're calling it twice now. You're explicitly calling, you have two occurrences of this now. You have this one and then this one. You have a large expression. What is the expression? The pair x colon first of split at n minus 1 x's, comma second of split at n minus 1 x's. There are two occurrences of split at n minus 1 x's here. So each time, so the way Haskell works is that whenever there is a function call, it will make the call. There is no notion of storing the value somewhere and then reusing it, etc. Like in other programming languages. So since Srimati, you say that you have not done any programming, you might not be aware of it, but the point is these are whenever you write an expression, work has to be done to compute it, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So that is what I'm saying. The same work is being done twice, and inside splitted n minus 1 x's, you will do twice splitted n minus 2 x's. But then that will involve, each of those calls will involve 2 calls to splitted n minus 3. Okay. So you'll have a tree like this. We'll look at all this complexity later in more detail. But right now I'm just telling you that this is. But whereas here you are making only one call. Okay. You are making a call. You are sort of storing the result in this pair y z. And then you are not making the call splitted. You are just saying y's and z's. Okay. So the call will not be made twice. It will be made only once.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, is it clear? So it depends on the number of occurrences of this splitted inside your expression. There is only one occurrence here. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically the learning here is that local definitions. Local definitions help you avoid repeated computation of the same value. Okay. Okay. Somebody is asking me, can I please go a bit slow? Okay, good. So yes. So you want me to repeat something? Amit Parikh.
Yes, sir.
Is there something that you want me to repeat or go over once more?
No, sir. It is now comfortable.
It is okay now? Okay, fine. Sorry if I am just I put too much material in the slide and I'm just in my own mind I'm thinking, oh, I should complete all this, but there is no reason why I should complete all this. Okay, you can always we can go however far we can go, and then we can complete this in the next class also. Okay, so yes. Okay, so we have seen characters before, the data type char before, but we have not seen them in proper detail. We have not formally introduced them. So character values are written with single quotes, like here, this A here, 3 here with single quotes. Okay, sometimes these quotes are also called ticks. So, and this quote is called back tick. Okay, so the back tick is right below the topmost leftmost character below the tilde, and the tick is usually to the left of your return character. So there will be a tick below and then a double quote above. Okay, fine. So character symbols are stored in a table in some order. Okay, ASCII, Unicode, whatever. So there is a notion of an order in characters. This comes first, that comes second, etc., etc. Okay, A comes first, then B comes, etc. Okay, and similarly with numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 come in that order. Okay, and there are 2 functions that are provided by your data.char. This is another library module. So data.char, it has 2 functions, ORD and CHR. Okay, ORD gives you the number corresponding to the character. CHR gives you the character corresponding to a number. Okay, so for instance, I don't know. So, can somebody check ORD 65 and tell me? Not ORD 65, sorry, CHR 65. Anyone?
A capital A.
Capital A. Okay.
So how do you check? How do you check this?
Go to GHCA and check. Just write import data. So go to GHCA. Say import just say import data.char.
Okay.
Okay. So I think in 2-3 slides I will actually go to GHCA and do some of these programs. Okay. So yeah, I'll have to stop at some point and do that. Okay.
Yes,
and yeah, did you get Srimati?
yeah, so yeah, import.
65 is character A, right? So what about ORD? Let us say capital Z.
$90.
90, right?
Yes, sir, 90.
Okay, so this is how it goes. Okay, there is some internal table where the 90th entry is the character Z. Okay, and the 65th entry is the character A, etc., etc. And then you will have these functions. So of course, always they are inverses of each other. So if you take a character C and do ORD and then do the CHR again, you will get back C. And if you take J within the range, within the appropriate range, and do CHR and then do ORD, you will get back J. That's just this thing. So these are basic functions. And then you have lots of other functions in data.char. Here is a very useful function called toUpper. It will convert everything to uppercase. Okay. So small a will become capital A, small b will become capital B, small c will become capital C, etc. Similarly, you have toLower. toLower of capital A will become small a, toLower of capital B will become small b, etc.
Sir, will this directly work, or do you have to add some, import some toUpper tool?
Import data.char. If you just do that, toUpper will automatically.
Okay.
Okay. So one final thing I need to say is that what about toUpper of any other character that is not mentioned in this?
Doesn't change.
I have written C without quotes. C within quotes means the character C. C without quotes means it's just a variable standing for any character. So what should I return for any other character which is not a lowercase letter?
The same thing.
Yes. So C. Okay. Similarly, toLower of C is C. And remember again, this is a variable, not a character. Or a name.
It doesn't return C. It just says error. If you don't put colon, if you don't put the apostrophe.
Oh, no. Sorry. Okay. I get your confusion. No, Srimati, what I mean is that you don't call it by saying toLower C. Okay. What I mean is that if you call toLower with any other character other than these, this is part of the definition, not how you call it.
Oh, okay. And as in you're saying, it's like the error thing you said before. It does have it has the same type as what you put it, but it'll say error.
No. This is not like that. This is just returning the same. No. What I mean is this is part of the definition. This is like defining your own function and saying f of x equal to x. What is f in this case? You don't call it by saying f of x, right? You will call it with some appropriate. So if you define f is int arrow int, and if you define f to be f of x equals x, then do you call it with f of x in GHCA?
You put f of x and then you'll get whatever.
No, you don't put f of x in GHCA.
You're saying define when you define it.
This is definition. How will you call it? When you call it, you will say f and you will provide an integer.
You put a number in.
Put a number. Similarly, toUpper, you won't just say toUpper C. You will have to give a character. toUpper, the type of toUpper is character.
Yeah, okay.
And similarly, toLower.
Yeah, sorry, sir.
Now you understood? So what I'm saying is that if you give any input other than any small letter, for instance, try toUpper of within single quotes 0, you will get back the same thing. 0 within single quotes. You can try that now. toUpper of 0, toLower of, I don't know, already a lowercase letter. toLower of small c. You can try within quotes.
Yeah, it does give you a big C, yeah, which is character. Which is a same character, right?
Yes. That is the point. Return the same character is what I mean. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So. Okay. So actually speaking, this is not the definition of toUpper. Okay. I am telling you what one possible definition could be. This is not a smart enough definition because you are exhaustively giving all the values here. Instead, you could, for instance, use the fact that A to Z are all stored continuously. So small a has some value. I don't remember now. It's 97 or something. Till small z, which must be 102 or something. And then capital A is 65 all the way till capital Z, which is 90. Okay, these are all characters that are stored in order without anything else coming in between. So what you can actually do is to convert a character to uppercase. Yeah, so what you can do is first check whether your character C is greater than or equal to A and less than or equal to Z. What do I mean by greater than or equal to, less than or equal to? I can write, because characters are stored in a table in order. Okay, so whatever order they are stored in, that is the order when you compare them. So the character small a is less than the character small c, the character capital A is less than the character small a, etc., because that is the order in which they are stored in the table. Okay, so check whether the input that you are checking with is occurring within the range small a and small z, in which case what do? You take order of capital A minus order of capital small a, and then you add it to the order of C. So in fact, if you want to make it better, you want to say that character of ORD C plus offset, where offset equals. In fact, at this point I can go to GSCA and do some code for the next however many minutes, and then we can stop. Yeah, so we can talk about strings later. Okay, but there are other things, built-in functions on character. You can check whether a character is space. By space, you mean it could be a single space or a tab or anything that is not visible. Okay, there are a few things that are called space. Is upper means check whether it is an uppercase letter. This is lowercase letter. By the way, everyone is familiar with the terminology uppercase and lowercase, right? It means capital and small letters. Okay. Each digit will check whether it is 0 to 9. Each alpha will check whether it is either a lowercase letter or a uppercase letter. Each alpha num will check whether it's either lowercase or uppercase or a digit. Okay, so someone is asking, can we use these built-in functions in our assignments? Yes, you can use some of these built-in functions in your assignments. Sure. So in fact, for some of the problems, you have to search and find out built-in functions that you need to use. Okay, so once you figure out what you need to do for those problems, try to see what function is appropriate, but not too much. Okay, so most of the problems are straightforward that I've given to you. So you will have to write programs, but some of the, in fact, there is no problem that I've given which involves characters, etc. Okay, but if you want to use init, last, etc., you can. Again, there is no problem that I've given you that involves all that. Okay, for now it is fine, but for later assignments, unless I explicitly state, you can use the built-in functions. Okay.
So what does is space do? I missed that.
Okay, is space will, okay, we can actually go to yes, you see this? It returns true for any Unicode space character. Okay, what is a Unicode space character? It is just space. Okay, something that you type, but it will not be visible on the. Let us just put it that way, to be simple. Something that you type on the screen, but it won't be visible on the screen. Okay, something that you type on the keyboard, but not visible on the screen as a special character of its own. So it includes space, but also tab. You clearly done tab any number of times, right? Tab, new line, etc. So you will press the enter and it will take you to the next line, but you don't print any character corresponding. Okay, those are all called spaces. Okay. The other things. The other things you don't need to worry about. Some archaic, some. So tab and new line is all you need to worry about. Backslash R, backslash F, backslash V, and all. Even I don't really know. Okay. So yes, and then you have case conversion like 2 lower, 2 upper. You have single digit characters which will take a digit. So it will take 0 and it will give you the number 0. So it's of type character to integer, digit to int. So it will digit to int of 0 will give you 0. 1 within quotes will give you 1. 9 within quotes will give you 1. And similarly, int to digit will do the reverse. Okay, is it clear? So these are all some of these things that you can do with data.char. And the next thing I want to do is data.string, because strings are nothing but lists of characters. But since I've done enough material already, I will stop now and we'll do some examples on GHC in GHC. Okay. Okay, good. So now we are. Okay, good. So let's start writing something. What did you want to write? You wanted to write 2 upper. My 2 upper. As long as A is less than or equal to C, my character C, and the character small a is less than or equal to C, and C is less than or equal to small z, then I want to return the character corresponding to odd C, which is my input character, plus offset. Right? Otherwise, you just return C, where offset equals or. So you want to convert small a to capital A, right? So what is the offset? If you want to go from small a, the order, the number corresponding to small a to the number corresponding to capital A, what do? You do order of capital A minus order of small a. Okay. That's it. So you first look at the number corresponding to C, add offset to it. The offset is whatever is the difference between the number corresponding to small a and the number corresponding to capital. Okay, so that's what. So this is it. Now this will give you yeah, that's it. So stylish Haskell parsing error.
Sir, instead of A, we could have chosen any letter, right?
You could have chosen any letter, yes. Why is there a parsing?
Sir, there is a space between less than and equal to in the third line. Would that be causing a problem?
Right, that is it. So it's not a styling error, it's actually an error. Thank you. Okay, so now my 2 upper of small a, capital A, my 2 upper of small m will give me capital M, etc. Okay. Yes, so as somebody is mentioning, offset is the ASCII gap between small letters and capital letters. Okay. Offset is just the name of a variable. Swaminathan Rajagopalan is saying, what is offset? Offset is a local definition. That is just a name for this expression.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, instead I could have directly used this expression up there itself, but then it will clutter the main definition and you won't realize what is happening. Okay, I want to just emphasize the fact that this is some offset that you are adding to every character. Okay, good. So this is one thing. What else can we do? We can try to do some, we still have some time. We can do some. Okay, so without even introducing strings, etc., I know that I'll tell you that strings are list of characters. So I can either say string or I can say list of characters. I want to just do things like occurs. I want to check whether a character occurs in a string. How do I do this? Occurs of C in a string which consists of characters. So I'll call it C's. Occurs of C in C's or D's. What are all the various cases? I have a list of characters. What could the list of characters be? Base case, empty. In which case, what do you say?
False.
False.
Yeah, because C cannot occur in an empty list. Okay. Occur C in a non-empty list, which is given by D followed by T's, is what?
If D is equal to C, then true, else.
And one way of writing this is to say either C equals D or occurs
CDS.
CDs. Okay. Is this fine? Now you can use this to check whether a letter occurs in a word. So what is this browse thing that we are saying? So somebody mentioned browse, right? Can you just say browse? Browse is only giving you whatever has been defined till now. But if you want to browse library packages, I don't know what. I need to check what the options for browse are. Occurs.
Sir, it's browse followed by prelude.
Okay, great. Okay, good. Okay, so that gives true, this gives false as you expect. But actually, do you notice something about this occurs function? Does it have anything to do with the characters at all? Really, if you look at the definition?
No, it can be any type as long as it type has equality.
Who's saying this?
Chandradeep.
Anyone else? Yeah. So the only thing you used is equality. No, there was nothing else that was specific to characters that we used. Only this. Okay. So you can actually make this more general. So this is the one nice thing about Haskell. You write a function and then you can immediately generalize this. And the way to generalize it is that you don't even need to touch the function definition. You just need to go and make the types more general. That's all you need to do. Okay. So here you can go here and say, and that is actually a built-in function. Okay. That's called elim. Okay, that's a built-in function. It's of type. So I mean, it's even more general than what you want. But basically, as long as A admits equality is A arrow, this K arrow. Okay. So this is not useful. A arrow list A arrow bool is what you want to be. So you can just check elim C, so not C, your A in mind. That will give you the same result. In fact, when you use lm, you will just like checking whether, so to check whether to express that that some element belongs to a set, you will use belongs to, right? And that will be in between the element and the set. You will use it as an infix operator. Similarly, it's more natural sometimes to write A is an element of this. Okay. So you can do such things. I'll stop now because I've covered some material. Some of you have already found it fast, and now there are only 5 more minutes, and I don't want to start anything new. When we come back, we'll look at strings and we'll look at more stuff about Haskell. Maybe I'll take some time off to talk about type classes. Then we'll resume. Okay. Any questions that you would like to ask now? So yes, like someone told me now, please tell me if I'm going too fast. Okay. If I'm going too slow, it is fine because you know that is the aim. The aim is to carry everyone along with me. But if it's too fast, please tell me. It is good. Whoever told me that I was going too fast. Yes. Anyone has any doubt? Anyone thinks that nothing made sense in today's class, or something made sense, but you would like to know more? Please ask me now. Did you have a reasonable session with the TAs the other day? Anyone?
Yes.
And has any one of you tried looking at the assignment problems? Are there any difficulties? Is there any? If anything is not clear or some such in the problem statement, please tell me. Yes.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Tell me.
Sir, how can I mean, how do we need to upload the assignment? I mean,
Yes. Yes. You need to upload the assignment. Yes.
no, I mean, we have written the code and it is already present in the notepad. So will I write?
Don't code in Notepad and so on. I mean, so you have to code it in your. Okay. So yeah, that's fine. So you just present your .hs file. Have you loaded it in GHCI? Have you checked it, etc.?
Yes, sir. Yes, I have done that.
So just load the .hs file onto the. So and so sometimes there is a problem with Windows versus other operating systems. Okay, so I shall see if there is a problem. I'll try to solve it at my end. That's okay. But yeah, so if you have a file called .hs, have you followed all the instructions that I've given? Not change the name of the functions, etc., etc.
So I have just written the codes. Actually, I didn't go through the instructions. I need to go there.
You do need to go through the instructions. You need to run. You need to check whether all the cases that I mentioned work, etc., etc. If you just submit, then you will get a 0. If it doesn't compile, etc. Yeah. So did you run and see, Ishan?
Yes, sir. Yes, I've checked it.
Okay, you check the program, then it's fine. So check the program, look at the instructions, just see if you you just followed the instructions. There is nothing very deep. All I'm asking you is to not change the function names, because when I test your functions, I will be writing one automated script or whatever, which will just call various functions. And if the name changes, then your program won't pass the test cases. Okay, that is all. Okay, okay then. Yeah. Okay, if there are no more questions.
Sir, in the is prime question, minus of any prime would be prime or would be
No,
true or false?
it's only two or only for positive numbers. You can assume that I won't ask you negative numbers.
Okay.
Sir, and I have a question. In the primes in function, can we use the is prime function in that?
Yes, you can use these prime. Actually, I was thinking that the way I solved it, I used the primes in function in the is prime.
Okay, because you gave it in the other order. So yeah,
you can do it whichever way you want. Okay, so yeah, so you can use the is prime function in primes. That is fine.
In this colon T LM are foldable and EQ properties for these types.
We'll talk about foldable and all later. We might not even talk about EQ is a property of the type. It is saying that A admits equality tests. Okay, so forget about foldable for now. We'll get to that later.
But those are properties.
Yeah. The foldable is not even a property of the type A. It is a property of the. Right now, I don't want to use those words. Okay, so forget it. Yeah, foldable is something about something to do with types. So you can forget it. Yeah. So for now, whenever you see foldable T, if you think, ignore the foldable T, and instead of the TA, think of it as list of A. Chandradeep?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so wherever you read TA where it says foldable T, just think of it as list A. Okay. Okay. Anything else?
Sir, in the problem set, assignment, can we use list comprehension?
Yeah, please, you have to use list comprehension. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I haven't introduced list comprehensions yet, have I?
I thought you did not.
I did, but you can use list comprehension. In the next class, I'll come to list comprehension. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry about it. Somehow I thought it was already there and you can use list comprehension. I'll mention list comprehension right at the beginning of the next class. Okay, because that is something that if you don't know, you might not be able to solve perhaps some problems. I'll tell that at the beginning, then move on to it. Okay, then. Yeah, see you. Yeah, so have a nice evening.
Thank you, sir.
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 Yeah. Okay, see you.
Thank you, sir.